And if we can just kind of move a little bit from talking about partnerships with organizations to partnerships with members, and coming to some of the questions that I've been approached with, there's a lot of members who feel that the academy politically and from a legislative advocacy standpoint is a little bit weaker because it seems like last summer there was a big buildup for a potential to leave the RUC, and with the academy staying, a lot of members are saying, well, was that the plan from the beginning, or if that was, then why was it seem like we were setting up to leave, and it seems like that would put the academy in a weaker position to lobby or to advocate for family physicians based on this RUC decision.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mike, and you did a good job of setting that up last night too. I can assure you that our board walked into that March meeting not knowing what the decision was going to be. I personally walked in not knowing what my vote was going to be. And there was no plan last spring that this was a predetermined decision that we would be staying in the RUC. That's just not remotely the truth.
And obviously, I mean, this is going to be a divisive issue, with members feeling very passionate, which I very much appreciate. Passions on both sides of this issue. How is the board going to approach that? And I mean, I see that there's been writings and blog posts on the AAFP website already. How is the academy going to make sure that they hear the members, whatever side that they're on, and to try to make the members understand the difficult process that the board went through and this decision that the board has made?
Sure. I think most importantly, Mike, we have to remember we're a membership organization, and our representative governance is that our Congress of Delegates represents our chapters. They elect our board, and our board does the work of the Congress between meetings of the Congress of Delegates, and so we're accountable to them, as we should be. We talked earlier about my interest in my year as president to expand our communication channels as an academy, and I'm glad that we're getting response to blog posts and the president's message and Twitter and Facebook, and I welcome everyone's response. And as I've told people, I can't respond to every single post, but I do in fact read every single post. And you're right, we've gotten some feedback already, and I agree. I think it's great that people have passion. I would point out that there's been some passionate pushback that staying in the RUC was not the right choice, and yet other people who read the president's message and the bullet points that you just laid out and felt like that helped them understand the strategic nature of the decision to stay in. And I don't pretend to think I can sway the opinion of someone who's passionately opposed to staying in the RUC, but as the president and the other board members will have the same responsibility, we need to be able to explain, and this is part of that process right now tonight, the decision we made, how and why we made it, and my intention is that by our Congress of Delegates in Philadelphia in October, and I'll put in a shameless plug, I hope that every family physician who's listening will plan to be there. Our members will be heard, and by then, my hope and certainly my intention, in any way that I have control over, is to show results from the strategy that's been laid out over the next 7 months that it has to be implemented. I'll be in Washington, D.C. next week with members, with our Executive Vice President, Dr. Henley, and some of our key staff that are involved in advocacy and government relations, and meeting with members of CMS relative specifically to physician payment and the recommendations from our task force. In the timeline we talked about earlier, I didn't have an opportunity to talk about how, in fact, we have laid the groundwork with with high leadership in CMS to receive these recommendations. They're very interested in receiving them. CMS had an observer on our AAFP task force, and so has been, plugged in and aware of what the discussions have been. Has simply been waiting for the final recommendations to come from our board, and that was finalized at that meeting just here recently.
Now, I mean, this probably happens with a lot of, board policy decisions. I mean, you mentioned this is a membership organization. How do you respond to members who would say not only about this decision, but any kind of board policy decision? The Academy's not listening to me, and I'm going to be choosing not to renew my membership because I'm just not feeling like I'm feeling heard. How do you respond to a statement like that?
Well, I really believe that you have to earn that trust by doing what you say you're going to do, and I am listening. In the media channels we talked about, and I get emails from members, I get phone calls from members, I see things in social media. I read every single thing that a member posts. So if they communicate through a channel that exists that can reach me, I assure you they're heard. That doesn't mean that an individual, a member in an academy of over 100,000, has their vote be the one that breaks the tie on a controversial issue. And so we have to recognize that because we're a very large membership organization, that we have this representative structure through our Congress of Delegates, which interestingly is relatively unusual in medical groups even of our size. One of the things I do as a AAFP president is attend other professional organization meetings, and they often don't have a Congress of Delegates that decides the policy. They have their board decide the policy for their organization, and I think that there's definite advantage in the member voice that we embrace in our academy.
Something also I wanted to touch on too is part of that essay that you wrote is the new approach that the Academy is taking on this issue, kind of trying to going around the RUC and presenting issues directly to CMS or to Medicare. Can you talk a little bit about that strategy?
Yeah, in the past we had really tried to work within the RUC, and people have described that as a dysfunctional relationship. I don't know if that's a good metaphor for it or not, but it certainly has not met the needs of family medicine. I think there's no doubt of that. I haven't said it yet, but the decision to stay in the RUC was not at all that we're satisfied with the RUC's response, or that we're pleased with their performance, or that we have any illusions about how much they might change in the future. It's simply a strategic decision that to stay in and work from within while we do, just as we're going to talk about now, going around them when necessary, that sort of parallel synergistic approach is most likely to get us to our goals. And so I don't know how much it's an official agreement or a gentleman's agreement in the RUC, because I've never participated directly in the RUC, but there's a general sense that you don't go around that body directly to CMS. And we have told RUC and the AMA, for that matter, that that's fully our intention, and we don't believe that they can fault us for doing that. And the reason is they were very explicit in their discussions with us and in their letter about what's in their purview to fix and what isn't. And in those areas where they can't fix primary care payment, they can't fault us for going directly to another avenue to solve what they acknowledge, at least in our discussions, as our legitimate grievances with the payment system. AMA has official policy for supporting improved payment for primary care, but in a body like that, when you play a zero-sum game, which is also the game that the RUC has to play, if you increase payment for one group, it takes away from another. Now, that may be very legitimate, obviously, from a family physician perspective, but it creates a political discord in other entities.
So the strategy
yeah, go ahead. That's it. So the strategy now is to stay within the RUC for those things, and again, not naively thinking that we can continue to change them. But the one thing that I can assure you is that they won't change if we aren't there. And so, we very much want to be an agitator for reform and change within the RUC, fully conscious that it's an uphill battle, but we're still going to push for those things that were in our June 2011 letter. Those changes that we requested for are still the right things to make the RUC a more effective body. But in parallel to that, we'll take the recommendations from our task force directly to CMS. The real advantage of that piece of the strategy is it has the impact, the potential impact to achieve improved payment in a shorter timeline. There's current work going on to develop the 2013 Medicare Physician Payment Schedule. Our input will be timely to the development of that. There are some specific areas of input that were outlined in the President's message that you were quoting earlier, Mike. But, specifically, we're asking them to create new codes for primary care services that represent the intensity and complexity of the work that you and I do every day. The current 99213, 99214 E&M visits that are the same across specialties do not reflect in a modern healthcare system the complexity of the care that you and I deliver. And one of the faults in the RUC process is even if they improve payment for those codes, it's diluted by so many other bundlings of codes and other specialties that bill that code that the impact on primary care isn't sufficient. So the strategy in going to CMS that does have the capability to create its own codes and value them is that they could be specifically for primary care services with definitions for what composes primary care in the sense of first contact care, comprehensiveness, and continuity, those pieces that are so important to the care that you and I give, and then value those specifically so that that's not diluted by the other E&M codes billed by other specialties. And then the other major piece is for those things that we currently do that take up so much of our day but are not paid for, the non-face-to-face things like phone call management, for some people doing email visits, or meeting with family members when the patient's not there about complex care management and you can't bill for that if the patient's not there. All of those things need to be paid for until we can get to our eventual goal, which is a blended payment model that has a decreased reliance on fee-for-service, a meaningful care management fee that supports the medical home model for primary care, and appropriate amount of pay-for-performance for the care that we give.
Dr. Glenn Stream, thank you so much for being on the show here tonight. And you can come back here and talk about whatever you want. I will extend an invitation to anybody at the Academy or on the board to come on and chat about whatever you want to chat about. Did you have any closing thoughts here? As I can't believe that the hour has gone so quickly.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation, Mike. It has gone quick. Just back to our main topic, the RUC thing. I just want our members who are passionate on either side to know that there was a very thoughtful, deliberative process it's to come to this decision, and that we intend to make that strategy effective going forward, again, towards our ultimate goal, which is not whether the RUC lives or dies, but our goal as an academy is to improve payment for primary care. We believe we've laid out the good strategy for that, and we'll be hopefully displaying some results of that strategy as soon as our October Congress of Delegates in Philadelphia.